Good afternoon, Jason with AgTag Farms here. I want to talk a little bit more in detail for people who want more detail. We're going to have something come out on another social media platform, and we mentioned it and we touched on it, but I want to go deeper for those who have questions. So we had 22 cows, 22 calves, and a bull. So 23 grown animals and 22 calves on 2.5 acres for 7 days. We started May 28th. We hadn't grazed it all year. We brought them in here, and I'm trying to repair this land, so I'm doing a little bit different treatment. It's different goals for different context of what you're trying to accomplish. So 2.5 acres, 23 grown animals, 22 calves. Animal impact, what are we talking about? A ton of things, but let's talk about nitrogen in the manure. 45 animals, that's 180 hooves, micro-fracturing that soil, that ground with weight, creating micro-fractures and cracks everywhere so that the manure and the urine can soak in. Any rainfall that you get can soak in. A cow will presume, say an animal unit is a 1,000 pound cow. So if your cow's 1,300 pounds, scale it 1.3, 1,400 pounds, 1.4. An animal unit cow will consume 2.6 to 2.8% of their body weight a day. So that's 26, 28 pounds. They'll poop out 65 pounds on average. Could be 59 pounds one day, could be 72 the next, 65 is the national average. What percent of that is nitrogen? 1 pound of manure has 0.003% nitrogen. So about every pound of manure has 0.195% nitrogen. So let's just do layman's terms. Every 5 pounds of manure will have about 1% nitrogen in it, okay? So if you take that 65 pounds a day and you do all the math on that, and do it by the year, they'll do about 12 tons a year. That's 24,000 pounds of manure per year. If you do 65 pounds a day in a 31-day month, that's a ton. 12 tons a year, 1 ton a month, on average. You know, there's a lot of context, weather, climate, forage, whether you're pouring the feed to them, all that factors in. But we're talking about just on forage out in the pasture. So why does that matter? That many animals stacked on 2.5 acres, 80 to 90% of the nutrients they're getting out of the forage on that 2.5 acres comes out the back end and goes right back on it, down into those microfractures, back down into the biology of your soil. So it stays in the same area feeding the soil. If you're running a cow to every 10 acres, that gets scattered out over that 10 acres and it doesn't have the same effect. The nitrogen effect, those 23 animals, grown animals on this 2.5 acres for the 7 days they were here, if you do all the math, figure out how much nitrogen for free that I got put on this ground that didn't come out of a fertilized hopper. I didn't have to write a check for it. So when we talk about animal impact, that's just a small portion of why we're stacking these animals in so tight for short amount of times to improve our soil, to get life back in it, to get life functioning like it's supposed to in your biodome with the fungi and the bacteria, all the everything that's living in your soil, okay? And then to let the forage on that soil uptake it. Because just because it's in the soil, there's another video on our channel about that. Just because it's in the soil doesn't mean the forage on that soil will uptake it into itself and utilize it. Something can be wrong in your biodome to where the nutrients don't work together like they're supposed to. Go watch, there's a million videos on nitrogen cycles and water cycles out there on the internet, so I'm not going to redo those. Go look at a couple of them and that'll all play into part what we're talking about doing here. So that's why animal impact. Now, I left them cows on here for 7 days and we probably harvested 85% of the forage. I was not planning on coming back. I was getting off of it for the rest of the year to let it rest and recover, to build soil, build roots, and whatever it did, I might come back and graze it in a stockpile situation this winter, maybe. Well, guess what? We got some decent rain. I rotated them through this side. I came back here in about 14, I think it was 41 days. I came back to that same 2.5 acres with the same animals, and I was able to graze it for 6 more days. So that's why it matters on stacking. A lot of people don't understand why we stack animals in tight like that. And that's really not very, as far as pounds per acre, that's very light, very light. There's people doing 100,000 pounds of stock density per acre, 200,000, 500,000 pounds. Now, I could have done that. I could have took this 2.5 acres and cut it into 3 paddocks, you know, 3/4 acre paddocks, and done them for 2 days apiece, or broke them down into 6 paddocks and done them for a day apiece, and got that same impact, probably better results actually. But that's why we do it. I'm trying to explain why the concepts work that we do. It took me 2 years to buy into this, and I've been doing it for about 3 years, and the results are absolutely astounding. You can increase the numbers of animals you're running. I've increased mine 43% and I'm feeding. Last year I fed about 40% of the hay I normally feed. So we had good rain, and that plays into it, but it plays into it in a commercial operation also. So you have to compare apples to apples, but that's why we do what we do. I wanted to talk a little deeper in depth about the advantages of having those animals tight with what's in the manure. We didn't even talk about the phosphate and potassium in the manure. We didn't even talk about urine. We didn't even talk about the bacteria and the enzymes in the cow's saliva, that when they bite that grass and they tear it off, that it responds to the forage and goes through the biology down to the soil to have an effect there. Have you ever had a old man, or I don't know that many people use sickle mowers, but cut a hayfield with a sickle mower, then cut one with a disc bine and see which one recovers faster? So there's all these principles in regenerative agriculture that work to feed your soil, to treat it better, to keep the life there in the soil to do what it's supposed to do. It gives you disease and insect and pest resilience because the nutrients are there. Most diseases and issues you have stem from a nutritional deficiency. So I should probably make another video on that, but I'll touch lightly. I had a soil sample that said I had certain elements in the soil that I needed for what I was doing. Sap analysis on the forage that came out of that said I was deficient in it. I thought somebody made a mistake, but you can do a foliar application of what you're needing if you need it done immediately to get results, like say in a crop situation that you don't have weeks to respond. You may only have a day or 2 window, but you can address it with the nutrients you need in a foliar application, but find out the root cause of it. There's something wrong in your soil biodome, that your nitrogen cycle's messed up, your water cycle's messed up, you've got an anaerobic or an aerobic soil. Something's wrong, and the more you can work with Mother Nature instead of fighting her, the better luck and success you're going to have. Tune in. I hope some of this is informative. If you have any questions, leave us a comment. We'll do our best to get to them as soon as we possibly can. We're overwhelmed with not only working our jobs and raising kids and trying to do the best we can in this regenerative ag program, but we'll do the best we can to answer questions. We love y'all. Hope y'all have a blessed day.